Everyone's buzzing about stress and how harmful it is, but nobody really knows what it means. But don't worry, I'll explain it to you. Because stress is not just stress. Stress is a natural part of life. It mobilizes our forces, sharpens our senses, and helps us deal with challenges. Stress can be good, but also destructive. It depends. In this video, I explain everything to you about it, what it means, when effort turns into real stress. We go into studies, mechanisms, everything, simply everything. But first, follow for more. All right, let's talk about how stress makes us sick. The mechanism. Imagine you're chilling in the couch. Suddenly, you hear a loud noise. Something crashes outside. Within seconds, your body goes into alarm mode. Your heart beats faster. Your muscles tense up. You're wide awake. That's stress in its most original and useful form. Our body has developed an impressively intelligent system to deal with threats. As soon as the brain detects danger, two systems kick in at the same time. First, the sympathetic nervous system that gives you the instant adrenaline kick. And second, the HPA axis, which reacts more slowly but releases cortisol, our main stress hormone. Let's take a closer look at how all this works. First, the hypothalamus, a small region in the brain, releases a hormone called CRH that travels to the pituitary gland. The pituitary quickly responds with the hormone ACTH, which stimulates the adrenal cortex. And that's when cortisol comes into play. Cortisol is a real all-rounder. It immediately provides energy, suppresses the immune system, and even affects our brain function. All great, as long as it doesn't last too long. But what happens when the stress sticks around? When the body doesn't switch back into rest mode? Then we get what's called allostatic load, which basically means the system wears itself out. Constant overload leaves biological marks, and that is the real problem with chronic stress. How chronic stress changes our body? Let's start with the brain. The hippocampus, responsible for memory and learning, suffers especially under too much cortisol. Nerve cells shrink, and the creation of new ones is slowed down. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex gets weaker. That's the part of the brain we use to make conscious decisions, focus, and regulate emotions. And while all that's happening, the amygdala, our fear center, gets overactivated. That means we suddenly interpret harmless stimuli as threats. Letting go or relaxing becomes hard. Imagine tools like fMRI show it clearly. Chronic stress measurably alters the brain's structure, but it doesn't stop at the brain. Our hormonal system also gets thrown off balance. Cortisol stays chronically elevated or later drops to dangerously low levels, like you often see in burnout. Constant sugar release promotes insulin resistance, raising the long-term risk of diabetes, and the thyroid slows down. The metabolism becomes sluggish. Then the immune system. Acute stress can actually boost it in the short term, making us more capable of fighting infections or injuries. But with chronic stress, this flips. Immune cells like lymphocytes and T cells decrease. Inflammatory markers like IL-6 rise, and the body enters a chronically inflamed state. The result? More prone to infections, autoimmune diseases, and even tumor growth. Stress literally has a heart for us, just unfortunately, not in a good way. Constant activation raises blood pressure. Blood vessel walls get inflamed. Heart rate variability, a marker of resilience, drops. This clearly increases the risk of heart attack and stroke. And your digestion isn't safe either. When cortisol stays in the picture, stomach acid production drops, digestion slows down. That leads to bloating, constipation, or irritable bowel syndrome. The gut lining becomes more permeable, leaky gut, and the microbiome, our gut bacteria ecosystem, gets thrown off balance. Studies even show that stress can change the microbiome enough to trigger depressive symptoms. Reproduction is also affected. In women, it can cause irregular cycles, no ovulation, and decreased fertility. In men, testosterone drops, libido decreases, and sperm quality suffers. During pregnancy, chronic stress increases the risk of preterm birth or low birth weight. And finally, yep, even skin, hair, and teeth feel it. Acne, eczema, psoriasis can flare up. Hair loss increases. Teeth and jaw suffer from constant teeth grinding, a common stress outlet. Cavity risk goes up due to higher cortisol levels and increased sugar consumption, from pressure to illness. When chronic stress breaks the system, chronic stress isn't some vague feeling, it's a measurable biological state of emergency. If it lasts long enough, it literally changes the brain's structure and function with serious consequences for mental health. Let's start with burnout. Everyone's heard of it, everyone's scared of it. Everyone's scared of ending up there because nearly everyone is in constant stress. But burnout isn't a sudden breakdown, it's a slow biological derailment, usually developing over years. And it's not just overworked CEOs, caregivers, single parents, students, athletes. Anyone can be affected. Burnout is a condition of our time, independent of job title. On a biological level, it all begins with chronically high cortisol. That causes glucocorticoid receptors in the hippocampus, key for memory and stress regulation, to become less sensitive. This is called downregulation. Problem? Those receptors are part of the feedback loop that's supposed to say enough stress hormones already. If that signal's missing, the stress system stays on, like an engine that won't shut off. This leads to cortisol dysregulation. At first, there's too much cortisol, then later, once the system's exhausted, there's often too little. In many people, morning cortisol levels become abnormally low, which comes with fatigue, sleep problems, trouble concentrating. Noradrenaline and dopamine also stay chronically high, which paradoxically doesn't energize you, but burns you out. The brain is literally burned out. Studies show people with burnout often barely respond to stress anymore. The cortisol response is flat. The stress system is no longer flexible. It's gone dull. Even the classic symptoms can be explained biologically. Emotional exhaustion is linked to dysfunction in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, both key for emotion regulation. Depersonalization, the feeling of being detached from yourself or others, often goes hand in hand with an overactive amygdala and the drop in performance. That's tied to low dopamine in the frontal brain, making motivation, decisions, and mental focus harder. Next, depression. Depression is much more than a mood issue. It's the result of deep changes in the structure and chemistry of our brain, often triggered by chronic stress. Three core mechanisms are at play: neuroinflammation. Chronic stress raises certain signaling molecules, pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 or TNF alpha. These can even cross the blood brain barrier and affect neurotransmitter production. The result? Less serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline, all crucial for emotional balance. Lack of BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF is like fertilizer for the brain, helping nerves grow and regenerate. Chronic stress lowers BDNF, especially in the hippocampus. That means less brain flexibility, worse memory, learning, and mood. Interestingly, many antidepressants don't just affect serotonin, they also boost BDNF, HPA axis dysregulation. Many people with depression show abnormally high cortisol levels, often all day, or lack the natural evening drop. That causes sleep issues, fatigue, low libido, and a weakened immune system. Studies show there is a direct link between prolonged stress, HPA overactivation, and severe depression, anxiety disorders, and panic attacks. The brain sees danger everywhere. Anxiety disorders often result from a chronically overstimulated stress system. The amygdala becomes more sensitive, reacting faster, more intensely. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, our rational control center, loses influence. The brakes are gone, so the body reacts to harmless things as if it's life or death. That can lead to panic attacks or generalized anxiety, constant unease with no clear reason. Here, too, cortisol plays a role. It affects the neurotransmitter GABA, which helps us feel calm. If GABA is lacking or not working right, it's hard to relax. We stay stuck in alarm mode. Lastly, but no less intense, PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. Traumatic stress from accidents, abuse, or loss can alter our stress axis at a foundational level, even epigenetically, meaning how genes are turned on or off. You saw my last video? No? Watch it after this one. In PTSD, the HPA axis often shows a paradoxical reaction. Instead of overreacting, it underreacts. Cortisol levels are often too low, which is a big deal. Cortisol normally calms the fear system. When it's missing, the amygdala goes unchecked and the body stays in constant alert mode. Brain scans show overactive amygdala, shrunk hippocampus, hyper-alert stress response. The system is essentially wired for trauma. Stress thresholds are low, regulation nearly impossible. Okay, that was a lot of negativity, but we have to know these things in order to change.